So these 5 decks don't seem super good right now, but they've performed up to a standard, or are going to perform up to a standard here, quite possibly in the near future. Make sure you guys smash the living crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. So, number 1 is going to be Dark World. Now, this has been my favorite argument from players at the moment. They're like, Konami picked the worst possible time to release Dark World, Robbie. Robbie, you know what? I'm mad. I'm a dedicated Dark World main. Dimensional Fissure and Macrocosmo to 3 is the absolute worst, man. Let me tell you what. Look. Alright, you weren't going to perform anyway as long as tier exists in the format. I hate to tell you this, but unless you're doing some like FTK shenanigans out here, Dark World was already a massively fragile deck. I've seen this deck play, I've seen this deck open up the absolute nuts game 1, and I've watched it be a House of Bricks game 2 and 3. Alright, now that's not to say that, you know, much like some other decks we've had in the past, that this deck can't, you know, go 4-0 to local. If you're expecting to go 9-0 at a regional level, no. Alright? Yeah, Macro and Di-Fi running around the format does hurt this deck immensely, sure. But you also got to remember, when your own greatest weakness is yourself, yeah, there's that. The timing feels off, yeah, sure. But once again, Dark World players need to remember that, you know, I activate Dark World dealings, and your opponent discards a tier monster. Guess who's triggering, baby? It not only is your Dark World cards, but a deck that gets to play on tier 0. Oh, they also have the Ishizu cards to shuffle back your Dark World cards. Alright, once again, deck doesn't seem good, not only because of Macro and Di-Fi, but the best deck in the room is literally a Dark World counter. Alright, I don't know how many times I need to say that to people, but the deck can still perform. Alright, it can still do good on a local level. That's like the point I want to say with this video is just because counters exist and it doesn't seem good, doesn't mean that it's not good. Alright, does that make sense? Yeah. Next up is going to be MATHMECH. Now, this is an interesting one, in my personal opinion. Now, the thing that's hindered this deck's success has actually been the buy-steal cards. The fact that, you know, Magnamut, Saronir, and Druis Worm all exist as an opportunity to banish this deck's key cards. Punishes it and makes it very hard to be a MATHMECH player right now. But the thing is, on a more localized level, depending on how much rogue and things that you might have running around, I still think that MATHMECH can shine in that really weird category of just being an OTK machine. But once again, you still got to play around all of the buy steals in the world. Your tier matchup isn't necessarily the greatest thing in the world, and yeah, you can OTK Sprite and, you know, play through some of their more devastating boards for sure, but you still have to do MATHMECH things to get to that point, and one splash monster ends up detouring your whole day. So where do we stand with this deck? I'm going to put it pretty much in the same place as Dark World right now. I think that the deck still can compete. I think that the deck still is a little bit of a deck that's going to have some issues kind of going forward here. And we'll just kind of have to wait and see if the deck can, you know, overcome those very, very hard obstacles to keep up with the metagame. Now, for the rest of, you know, what MATHMECH deals with in the format, I don't know. I think the deck can overcome its issues. It's just, it's such an uphill battle at this point in time for the deck that, I don't know. But once again, if you stick to it on a localized level, you're not going to have any real issues out here in order to do things. So, once again, check your metagame, see what the rest of your rogue is going to be around you before you decide to play MATHMECH. You can probably overcome some things with side deck choices, but it's, I don't know, this deck is just in such a bad position. Next up, we got good old Sky Striker out here. Oh, but Robbie, Sky Striker is donezo. I'm telling you, man, just let it go. So, the Sky Striker innovators out here have been looking at ways for this deck to still compete, and I think that they're doing pretty good out here at doing just that. The loss of Mystic Mind hurt for sure, but we have linkage now. We have buy steals. Some of the general consensus I was starting to read from some of the Sky Striker players was, you know, hand traps like Ash Blossom are so 2000 and late. The Bysteel cards just feel a lot better in terms of the levels of interruption. They also give you, you know, some abilities to go get more friends. They give you some spot removal options as well. Pretty much everything that the Sky Striker monsters give you as immediate out power is going to be quite nice. And I do think that those are going to be some very important answers here. Now, the rest of the Sky Striker toolbox, I mean, obviously, Afterburners, you know, Shark Cannon, all of the tools that you've had available to you for years here are going to make your matchups against the rest of the meta usually good. You're just going to kind of have problems with tier if tier kind of start to overflow you. You can have an okay sprite matchup. It's going to depend on, you know, how much power that those particular decks are going to be able to put in your face, and how much of a situation you control. The problem with Sky Striker being a control deck right now is you have to be able to control the situation for these other decks. If they start to get out of control and too much advantage is generated, you know, a deck like Sky Striker that would rely on Mystic Mind to kind of contain those issues until that Sky Striker itself could, you know, put something back on the field and try to get itself back under control, can't do that anymore. So your game plan is just going to have to be a lot more controlled, per se, at the end of the day. So that's what you're looking at right now in terms of Sky Striker. Next up is going to be MADOLCHE. Oh boy, candy treats. Every MADOLCHE player out here has been crying with the loss of Herald of Orange Light, and I understand that. I get that having lost Herald really sent this deck back to the Stone Age. That's two less negates that a deck that relied on those negates to kind of put up its game plan and do its thing is kind of without now. And I do think that going forward here, don't get me wrong, that you will get the chance to see some sort of pushback from this deck. I don't think that MADOLCHE is totally out of the ballpark. There is Herald of Green Light if they really want to try to go that route, for sure. It's just going to have to come down to levels of innovation. I know that some of the builds have been going towards wanting to play, you know, the Ishizu package, not the millers, but the ones that shuffle back as forms of interruption to give the deck a chance to kind of keep up with where the game is going, which is perfectly understandable. I mean, those Ishizu cards that shuffle back are absolutely amazing, not only for the aspect of regenerating resources, but in the form of interruption that they also give you as well. You know, you need to kind of fight fire with fire in this metagame, and, you know, using the Ishizu cards to counter the Ishizu cards definitely is going to be, like, I think the proper game plan at the end of the day. So, yeah, give some consideration to MADOLCHE. Once again, the deck looks pretty bad on paper right now with the loss of the Heralds, but I think that the dedicated Candy community out here will definitely let this deck continue living on. They will find some sort of innovations for it. They've done it in the past. I mean, it is one of the coolest going first or second decks in the game, evenly matched, just as a massive resource tool for this deck as well. So, once again, just because it looks bad right now doesn't mean that it won't get the chance to perform. And last but not least for this video is going to be Labyrinth. So Labyrinth is, well, while it has performed in the OCG and has been an amazing anti-meta pick there, the deck suffers from what we like to call TCG trap syndrome. Traps are bad in the TCG, according to most people. And seeing that a deck that is wholly based on back row is having issues. Now, we do get big welcome Labyrinth here in the near future, which will help this deck out immensely. If you're sitting here looking at this deck and you're like, oh, you know, I don't know, Robbie. Trust me, once you totally become like 30 trap control with 3 monsters, you know, 6 to 7 spells, the deck's going to feel a whole lot better on paper, all right? Everything that you know about the deck will change. Just, you got to wait for those last couple of good traps to come out in Photon Hypernova for this deck to kind of step up. So right now, while the deck might not look the most exciting, I understand that. You know, issues will be adjusted here in the near future. You got to be very patient for that change to happen. So, yeah, Labyrinth being a control deck, it's as long as it can control the opponent, much like Sky Striker, and things do not get out of control out of a situation that you yourself cannot clean up and handle, you should actually be fine, all right? Like, those are kind of your big things with a deck like this. So, as long as the situation is controllable, you'll be fine. So, those are the reasons why these decks don't seem good, but I think that they're still pretty all right at the end of the day. You got to be patient with these sorts of builds and see where they go. So please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Peace out. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.